Let's go to the United States now to speak to Sherwin Peace to just get his reaction on the passing of Prince Philip. Thanks very much, Sherwin, for joining us. Now, the US and the UK have always had a very special relationship. How are Americans reacting to the news of Prince Philip's passing today?
Well, the news has just permeated the American news cycle here. Of course, this news is not more than an hour old, so it's difficult to gauge the American response. Of course, morning breakfast TV shows have broken away from their normal programming to cross to London, as we are doing, to get the latest news out of there. But certainly a very strong relationship, one of the strongest allies between the United States and the United Kingdom. Of course, the Queen and the Prince hosting, most recently, former President Donald Trump to a state visit at Buckingham Palace. And of course, you will know that the recent controversy around the late Prince's grandson, Prince Harry, and Meghan Markle, the controversy of their move to the United States, and of course that jaw-breaking interview with Oprah Winfrey, certainly shining a light, if you would, Nompu, on events and certainly circumstances surrounding their move in California. But certainly I think there will be a lot of mourning there. The royal family was much beloved around the world, no less here in the United States, even though this is a republic. And often there is debate around the usefulness of the royals in the United Kingdom and how different the United States is in that regard. But this is someone, as you correctly pointed out, and our colleague in London pointed out, and he was the longest serving consort to the British monarch, and was seen at her side, if only 2 paces behind Nompu, for decades. I mean, married for 73 years. And remember, was married to Princess Elizabeth before anyone knew that she would be in line to the throne. Prince Elizabeth's uncle, Edward VIII, of course, was the king, and he abdicated in 1936, allowing his brother, the later Queen's father, George VI, to ascend unexpectedly to the throne. So when Philip married Elizabeth, he had no idea that this was going to be his life, 2 paces behind a future monarch. So it was certainly something that was not expected. You know, and I would argue, you mentioned Princess Diana and that sea of flowers we saw out of Buckingham Palace, that this is the most significant death, Nompu, in the royal family, the British royal family, since the death of the Princess of Wales in August of 1997. Now, I don't know if we're going to see the outpouring of love. She was greatly loved, and a great deal of affection around the world. I don't know if he resonates quite the way she did, but certainly I think the expectation is that we'll hear tributes from the White House here in London. In Washington, we'll hear tributes from senior leadership, certainly at the United Nations, and we'll certainly be watching out for that.
I get the sense that Prince Philip was really quite a private person, and as Laura mentioned before, it looks as though he really doesn't want much fanfare, upon his funeral. And of course, he did have a very different relationship to the British public. Princess Diana was out there, and I think he was to a lesser degree. So I suppose it would be quite different. I wonder whether in the United States, as much as it's a republic, whether there be commemorations to Prince Philip, or maybe that's a bit of a stretch.
I wouldn't put it past the American public. They are certainly one for fanfare. I think there's a great deal of affection for the royal family. There was a great deal of coverage here when Philip went into hospital on multiple occasions. Most recently, his release from the St. Bartholomew Hospital for heart surgery, after heart surgery, we understand, in London in March recently. And the expectation, as has happened in the past, Nompu, was that he was going to recover, convalesce at Windsor Castle, and be seen in public again. He was going to be 100 in July this year, so just short of a really significant birthday. The Queen, she made a speech, Nompu, at their 50th wedding anniversary, their golden wedding anniversary in 1997. Remember, 73 years, that was about 20-something years ago, and she called him her strength and stay. I and the whole family, she wrote, and this and many other countries owe him a greater debt than he would ever claim or we should ever know. And that was the first sort of insight her first expression of her affection for her husband that we really can attest to in the history of their relationship. You talk about how private they are, these public figures that try as much as they will and can to be as private as possible, a very tight needle to thread, if you will. He retired, of course, in 2017, aged 1996. And when you talk about this private person, he was the patron and president of more than 780 organizations at his retirement. He was a sportsman. His interests in polo and sailing and flying, and also in the arts. So was very much a public figure as much as he might have attempted to be private.
Yeah, very versatile indeed. Let's go back to the Prince Harry story. Of course, he and his wife, Meghan Markle, they did that interview with Oprah Winfrey amid much hoo-ha, of course, and concerns about the kind of impact this would have on their relationship with the royal family. We know that the royal family issued a statement basically saying that they wanted to reach out and resolve problems. And real royalists were very offended that Prince Harry and Meghan could go out and do this interview. We live in Corona times and we don't know about the tensions between them and the royal family. Do you suppose, and I know this is asking you to speculate hugely, that Harry will be able to go and pay his last respects to his grandfather?
I would imagine so. I would imagine so. You know, the only official statement we got from the royal family after that incident is that they were going to, resolve this internally, and that's all we really heard. And then you get the sort of royal speculators on the sidelines and saying, well, they've heard this and that, but no one really knows what that relationship is. There was some video of Prince William being thrown a question at an event soon after that interview, asking if he had talked to his brother, and he said he hadn't, but that he would. And so one imagines that those conversations are ongoing. Prince Harry remains a senior member of the royal family, despite not having any official duties right now. And this was his grandfather, this was his blood relation. And I don't imagine any circumstance where he would be unable to travel under these exceptional circumstances to go home and to pay tribute to his late grandfather. So it is speculation to sort of cast our opinions and aspersions as to what that relationship might be. But certainly there is tension. One knows that. Prince Harry talked about the strained relationships that he had with his father, who will be the future King, Prince Charles. But one doesn't really have the insight because they try as best as they can to speak only through the official statements of Buckingham Palace, but one doesn't really get to sit down with the Queen ever in a one-on-one circumstance as we're doing.
Indeed. Sherwin, thank you very much for waking up early and speaking to us. Sherwin Bryce-Pease reporting there for us in the United States.